Hola, and welcome to episode 23 of Word to Your Mama. Today we have Joseph Patel, aka Jazzbo, aka Jazzbeezy. He is producer of Summer of Soul or When the Revolution Cannot Be Televised, which is Questlove's directorial debut. This amazing documentary was the winner of the Grand Jury Prize and Audience Award at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival Awards. Jazzbo is also former writer, DJ, and member of SoleSides, Yay Area, former creative director and producer at Fader, Vevo, Vice, and MTV. This was a great conversation. We get to catch up, figure out how long we've known each other, which is minimum 20 plus years. We get to talk about, what part of the process was he attached to this amazing doc, Summer of Soul, which I had the honor and the pleasure of seeing as it opened the Sundance Film Festival, which is a huge honor. So I got to see that. So we talk about that experience. We talk about how, failure, how it's impacted his career and creative process. And he gets, real honest about some, part of his path in the beginning. We also have questions from the audience from B Plus and Mona Lisa and some exclusive news regarding the Contact High project. It was great reconnecting and building with Jazzbo because he's such an amazing person. He's contributed so much and helped open so many doors for so many people. And he's just good peeps, man. Good peeps. It really... Especially, we recorded this in, I think it was late Feb. So it was just good for the soul. So enjoy. It works.
Old school.
Yeah. How
It's
are
good
you,
to see
man?
you. I'm good. It's really good to see you.
It's really good to see you. And I was just thinking, when I was prepping for this call, I was like, this has turned out to be a blessing for me because I'm just reaching out to all my homies and it's a way to catch up, but also like let other people know about your shit and we have convos, and if there's time left, convos after when we stop recording or whatever, like, just like it's reconnecting with motherfuckers. It's been really, really great. So
That's awesome.
thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy, but how's it in NYC, man? Like we're hitting a year on this fucking pandemic, and is it still snowing out there, or what's the situation?
It was snowing. It's weird. It's the pandemic was mentally and physically manageable until winter for me. And winter, like in the spring and the summer and the fall, I could go outside, I could get air, I could go for walks, we could run errands, I could see people distanced. Winter, you're just stuck indoors. And I'm fortunate where I live in a nice place in a nice neighborhood, but like when the cold gets there and the snow, and so the last few months have been really mentally tough for getting through the pandemic days.
I bet.
And for me, like being able to exercise is really good for my mental health. So that's sort of been disjointed. I've obviously had a very blessed last few weeks with the movie, but just it's everything else has been really hard. So I'm really looking forward to getting past winter. Hopefully vaccines are going out.
Yeah.
And being able to come on the other side of this season with a little bit more freedom. I miss seeing people. I miss running into people.
I know. I saw your tweet today. And Questlove was like, I miss avoiding people.
He would. He's always in demand. But like, the part of the kinetic energy of New York City is being out in the streets and running into people, and the serendipity of it all. And that's been gone for a long time. And what I realized is that New York, you have to sort of mentally train yourself to live here.
Yeah.
And physically train yourself to live here, in the sense that like a year ago, I was getting up in the morning, stretching because I'm old,
You're
going to
not that old.
going to the gym, coming back, eating breakfast, showering, hopping on the train, getting to the office by 9:30. And I couldn't do that right now if you put a gun to my head. Like I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it took years to get that sort of precision down,
That
and
flow.
it's all gone in a year. Like
So, for people who may or may not know, like you're born and raised on the West Coast.
I am born on the East Coast, but I was raised on the West Coast.
Oh, where were you born? I didn't know that you were born in
I
the
was
East Coast.
born in Pennsylvania
Oh,
and lived in Massachusetts till I was about 5. And my parents then moved to California, which is essentially, raised me in Northern California, the Bay.
yeah.
And
Yay area.
and then about 22 years ago next month.
I was
I'm,
gonna
I'm
ask, how long has it been?
yeah, 22 years next month.
Shit.
Yeah.
Because I think of you and I think of you of East Coast just because you've been there for so long. And then I have to be reminded of, I met you on the West Coast. You're over here, your history and your contributions to the culture that started out west.
Yeah, yeah, in the early 90s, and it's funny because that I've been here longer as an adult than I was as an adult in the Bay,
Wow.
but I still think of myself as from the Bay.
Of course, right?
And that part of me. I still hate New York sports teams.
Oh, really? So you haven't converted? You haven't gone full blown?
No, and I still root for the Niners and the Warriors and the A's, and
Hardcore.
it's just funny. I, I guess it's not honest to say that I always thought my stay in New York was going to be temporary, but I always thought New York is where I sort of found my groove. But I've always considered myself as a visitor in New York, partly. And home is always, my parents are still on the West Coast. My sister's there. So, Bay is always home.
So at what year out of the 22 years where you're like, oh yeah, I'm my heart's over there in West Coast, but I'm a New Yorker. I got this. Like I got the rhythm. I got my little things going on. I'm at Peeps, and like when did that hit?
I mean, when I moved to New York, it was instantly it moved at a speed that I was looking for, right? So I instantly felt a part of the mix. But they always say, Colson Whitehead, writer, had a book out after 9/11. His title of which escapes me now, but he said he wrote this thing, and I'm paraphrasing, is New York, you become a New Yorker when you remember what used to be there.
Oh yeah, when you're like, when you're like looking at Times Square and you're like, it's too clean, or da 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 da. Yeah.
Or even just like the corner. Oh, that used to be the bodega, or that used to be the bagel spot, and it's not that anymore. That's when you become a New Yorker, and I really like that because it's I think it was that first, after a few years of living in New York, like 3 or 4 years, where it was like, obviously I moved here pre 9/11, and then 9/11 happened, and that was instantly like, you're a New Yorker then.
Yeah.
But even before that, like, it was just sort of like, oh, things were changing in the neighborhood I lived in, and so pretty quickly, but it's sort of like it's like an arc, right? Like I was like sort of ascending in New York, and then the last few years have been like, I miss the Bay. I miss my home, I miss my family. So
I was thinking, you're a film, TV producer, director, and all this stuff like that, and you're a writer. That's how I met you. So I was trying to think of like how we met each other. Like for me, correct me if I'm wrong, I met you when I was part of the crew that was putting together the Art Speaks, right? The Art Speaks, that was like 2001, I believe. So at that time, you were already in New York?
yeah, it's funny because I think it was Art Speaks 2000 or 2001, because it might have been 2000.
It might have been 2000. I know it was like, I think it was like January or something like that. I'll look it up and I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah.
It's funny because I remember B plus. Brian Cross at Art Speaks had a little photo booth, that thing he was doing in the alley right next door or
Yeah.
something, and he sent me recently a photo he took of me in that little Irving Penn like
Oh yeah.
alley, yeah, and like. And what's funny is, at that time, I remember it vividly. I do think that's when we met in person. I do think we knew about each other beforehand, because you were always in the mix, and I think that sort of herb community, obviously. But I remember going to Art Speaks. I had a .com job, and I went out there with John Caramonica, and Jeff Chang was meeting us down there, and Oliver Wang was there, and it was just like, little writers crew.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I just, LA is funny. I've never lived in LA, but I obviously have a lot of extended family in LA.
For sure.
A lot of friends that I've made from my writing days. That LA always felt like a second home that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that. I think that is when we met.
Like in person. Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. And then like I met a lot of amazing people through that experience. I just like moved up to LA and was like in that activist like hip hop scene, and then I was able to reach out to a lot of people. I think I was working I think that's when I was also working with Frank Sosa. So like I was like hitting up a bunch of people and meeting like who are the tastemakers up in this scene, and it was fascinating. And it was like, I don't know, it was just like people are like, oh, you're moving to LA, LA sucks, it's so plastic, da, da. And I was just like, I don't know, I was like hella fortunate to get into this scene, because then I was able to connect with like a rainbow of people that loved music, loved the culture, were creatives and all that stuff. And I was like, these are my people. Like, this is it. Like, this is the core. And it really shaped me. But
yeah, well, actually, where did you move from?
From San Diego, and then I went to Long Beach State, and then I moved up further north to LA proper.
You know what it is about that community? What you're talking about is, it's not just people who love music, right? Everyone loves music, but it was a community of people that understood that the music was coming from people who lived in communities that needed tending and recognizing, and it was a little deeper than just loving music, right?
Yes, for sure.
And that's why it felt like community. Is it was all that stuff going on in LA especially was stuff I fell in love with when I lived in the Bay, and it was, what was exciting about it is it was a community. It was more than just artists. It was just like a everyone around the artists.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone lived in the same neighborhoods. They all lived. It was just like it was cool. It felt like community. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was pre social media, where you connected on maybe kind of emails a little bit, but it was like phone calls. Like it was like really connecting and taking time out to connect with each individual person and stuff. But it didn't matter where you were in California or New York. It was like this mutual respect, and like it was really a great feeling. And I think we talked about it. I think I posted a picture or something like that about Art Speaks, and I was like, fuck, 20 years, 22 years later, whatever, like, we're still fucking talking about the same. It was police brutality. That was what it was for. But yeah, magical night.
Also, shout out Frank Sosa.
I don't know. Like, I reached out to him because I want to have him on here, because he's a huge part of my story, and the evolution of shit. So I mean, I know that he's up in the Bay again. He's been up in the Bay for a while, and I think he's doing photography and stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken or traded DMs or anything, but we started following each other on Instagram a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I think he's up in Oakland. He's got family.
Yeah, he's got family and stuff like that. So, yeah, man. So I reached out to him just the other day, actually. I was like, yo, I can't talk about my tribe without you, dude. Like, so much has, like, when I, first moved up here and shit. But speaking of B+, Brian Cross, who I like to think of kind of like more than a photographer, a cultural historian, if you will. I also think of you. I was like, well, what you do, what you've done. I think what a lot of people that I have on as guests on here, it's like the non-linear career path. But I think that's kind of common for a lot of us creatives, right? We don't just do one thing. Like, you're not just a photographer, you're not just a director or a writer, da da da. Like, you're a creative. And overall umbrella is storyteller, right? So I was thinking, I'm just started reading this book, and I don't know if you've heard of it. It's by Dr. Sarah Lewis. It's called The Rise: Creativity, the Gift of Failure, and the Search of Mastery.
I don't know it.
And I just started reading it like today. And she's Harvard University Department of History, Art and Architecture, and the Department of African and African American Studies. And she talks about, that she rarely uses, it says failure in the title, but she rarely uses failure in the book because she feels like failure as a word is really imperfect because it was created in the 19th century to talk about financial institutions, like bankruptcy and shit. She's like, it doesn't really speak to like the human experience. And that like once you talk about failure, what we think about failure, that it no longer is a static concept, right? Like it evolves because you come out of it and you say like, oh, well, I learned something, or I da-da-da-da-da. As a creative, as a storyteller, as someone that's done so many different types of things, how do you feel failure has impacted your career and your creative process as a storyteller?
It's not a small question. I mean, everyone fails at something, right? And I think, there's people that say, oh, keep going no matter what people tell you. But it's like, that's not helpful either. Because sometimes you're just not cut out for shit. And so I think failure is only a negative if you don't learn from it.
Yeah.
And so I think, most people who are creatives fail at something.
Yeah.
And failure is a great teacher. It teaches you a lot if you allow it to. And so failure has really driven me in that, like, when I was a writer, well, I mean, look, I'll be real. Like, my first really taste with failure was my relationship with SoleSides. Right. So I was in college and found my sort of tribe there with Jeff Chang and DJ Shadow and Blackalicious and Lyricsborn and Latif. We started a label, SoleSides. Me and Jeff are the only two non-musicians. But we started this collective and we sort of bought into this idea of this crew, right? Which is a really good feeling to have. And I failed at that. Like I was being caught between what my parents' expectations of me were as a child of immigrants, what I was at school to do, and this allure of starting a record label where I wasn't actually going to make any money and earn a living off of being a non-musician on an independent record label.
Yeah.
And it was exciting. It was fun. It was incredible. But I failed them and subsequently had to leave the crew. And it still is something that teaches me to this day.
And what do you mean when you say that you failed them?
I mean, it's many years ago, but I wasn't quite the team player that I should have been.
Got it.
I wasn't looking out for the goals of the crew, and for a lot of reasons. Like, partly is I didn't understand what my role was. Partly was, when people are telling you to do something without explaining why to do something, you sort of, in your youth, you get rebellious. You're like, well, fuck you, I'm not going to do that. Just 'cause you're telling me to, like, bring me in. And it's like, so it was just goofy shit like that you learn from.
Yeah.
And I learned, right? I learned a lot from that. And then as a writer, freelancing for magazines, and then, ultimately moving to New York, and, as I failed at freelancing, right? I loved writing. I loved writing for magazines. I loved seeing my name in print. Loved spending time with artists and getting to talk to people about the artistic process. But I wasn't earning enough to live in New York City. And so, I then had to find like a job, like a real job, but I was fortunate enough to find one at MTV that I could, learn and grow from. But yeah, failure is such a good teacher if you allow it to teach you.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to fail. But if you don't learn from it, then you're going to keep making the same mistakes as opposed to new mistakes. And I think it's important to keep, you won't get anywhere. Very few people get anywhere without making mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I just said the creative process. It's like, the level of how large a quote unquote failure is can change the trajectory. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say, like, you're at sometimes you're just something happens, you're at a fork in the road, and you could either go these two ways. And that's the defining moment when you're at that failure. Like, is this really like, am I failing just because I'm good at this, but I'm just failing in the process? Or am I like gassing myself up and being like, I'm hella good at this shit, but this is a time to wrap it up. But let this be the teacher to be like, oh, well, maybe I'm not, like you're like SoleSides, like maybe like I'm not the label person, I'm not the freelancer, but I could still do this in this context and be successful and learn and grow. And then like you, because of all those things and like that you consider yourself to be failures, I mean, we are here now, and let's talk about this amazing movie that you were like, tell me about. I didn't know everything about it, but you were saying like someone that I love and respect so much that you were going to interview for it. And then you get in Sundance, you premiere it, which is an honor in itself. And then win Mad Awards. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your role in this, because I have questions. So tell the people what I'm talking about, what I'm hyped about right now.
So I just finished producing my first feature documentary called Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. And it is directed by Amir Questlove Thompson. I produced it along with a couple other people who had acquired this footage of a concert that took place in 1969 in Harlem, the Harlem Cultural Festival. And it featured Stevie Wonder and Nina Simone and the Staple Singers and Sly and the Family Stone and Mahalia Jackson and Max Roach and Abbey Lincoln and all these people at a particularly tumultuous time in Harlem's history, in America's history. And it's one of these things that happened, drew 300,000 people to a free show in the park across 6 weekends. And no one remembers it. And even when I was told about this project, I was like, no, this didn't happen. And then they're like, no, it happened. And some guy shot it. And I'm like, well, it's probably like one camera and it's shitty footage. And it's like, no, it's 4 cameras and it sounds amazing. And you're just like, yeah. And you're like, well, why don't we know about this? So I got approached about this project about 2.5 years ago. And, once I saw the footage, I was like, oh man. And, yes, I want to do this, but Amir directing, and I've known Questlove for 25 years now. And I was like, there's no way he's gonna end up being able to direct this. He doesn't have the time. This sounds like a lot of work. I'm not gonna do it. And then they're like, just meet with Amir. And so I met with Amir, and he's like, no. I'm like, you're not gonna have time to do this. And he's like, no. He's like, he's like, when I commit to something, I want to do it. He's like, I may not have the time, like a normal director might have the time, but that's why I need a strong producer to work with. And so I thought about it, and I said yes. And I had to get to a place where, for me, it was like, I've done a lot of cool shit in my life and in my career, they're kind of one and the same, right? And but I don't have the thing like, that if I met someone on a plane, I could point to and say, I do this. Oh, I produce and I direct. Well, what have you produced and directed? And I did a short film for the Fader. What's the Fader? And like, you know what I mean? Like, I just
It's not universal. It's not universal.
yeah, like it's cool shit, but it's relatively niche, and I'm proud of it. But I didn't have the big thing on a scale of a feature, so I got to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna kill it because I want to do more of it, and I'm glad I did. I'm really proud of it. It got selected. We finished the film in November of 2020. We were in the middle of shooting when the pandemic hit, so we had a last set of interviews to do at the end of March that we had to cancel, and went into the edit, figured out a way to edit virtually or remotely. And then we waited out coronavirus for a few months to figure out how to shoot the remaining interviews in a safe way. Summer and spring allowed for that, outdoor shooting, remote shooting. Finished it, submitted it to Sundance at the end of summer, rough cut. They not only selected it, they selected it for opening night.
Staying competitive in these dynamic times means having the right technology at work for your small or medium-sized business. Whether your goal is to grow, downsize, or modernize, Panoply BPO provides the right combination of tools, support, and affordability necessary to make it a reality. Visit panoplybpo.com. That's PANOPLYBPO.com to schedule your no obligation consultation today. Mention WTYM and get your 13th month of service for free. PanoplyBPO.com. There is a better way.
Then it goes on to win Grand Jury Prize and Audience Award, which is rare for a film to
Right.
get both. And then a week later, becomes the highest selling documentary out of Sundance, which is
Congrats, felicidades. That's amazing.
Yeah, and so like it's just been a really incredible last few weeks. But more than anything, the thing that is really fulfilling to me is I know we made a good film, and after that first night it premiered, when the reviews started coming in, formal reviews from critics at all the major news outlets, Twitter reviews, friend reviews, who I know people had seen it, everyone loved it. And not only did they love it, but they were seeing and feeling what we hoped they would see and feel.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible feeling as a creative. I've never experienced that before. The people are seeing and feeling the film in the way that you hope that they would. And that is intoxicating more than anything else. It's just, at one point, Amir's manager, Zara, was like, because the production company was sending us, press breaks, a roundup of all the press that was coming out as it was coming out. At some point the next day, like after the premiere, she's like, "Are they only sending us the positive reviews?" And I'm like, "No, like these are all the reviews. They just have to all be positive." Like, it's just an incredible feling.
Amazing, dude. And you gave me a little snippet into what you were doing. In like a very important interview that finally happened. That's a huge part of the movie. And then I see that you got into Sundance. Amazing. And then I was like, oh shit, your shit is sold out, premiering, da 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 da. So I was like, hey, do you think they're going to release? You gave me the awesome heads up that they're going to release a couple of tickets. I don't know if I told you this, but I was sitting here when you told me, and I was on my computer like, holy shit, like, you know how like you're trying to get those tickets, like, oh, da, 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 da. So I was like going like this, as people can't see me if they're only listening to this. I was kind of like biting my thumbnail, as one does sometimes. You just saw, I broke I chipped my tooth, but I got a ticket.
Okay.
So I got a ticket. And then also I love panels, Q&As, all that shit. So I was like, I get to go to Sundance for the first time ever, virtually. So I was there and then got to see the amazing panel afterwards. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, so Amir Questlove got on. I know on the panel, like some people had the footage for a while. Then he got on. How long after he was on did you get onto the project?
A couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause I was like, and I remember like they had the Q&A afterwards with you guys, and we can say, and I was just like, what the fuck about this audio? Like, how was it preserved?
Yeah.
Like the visual, the the visuals of it like is amazing as well, but like the audio, of course, is going to be on point if it's you guys. Like, but what you guys had to work with was like quality already.
Yeah, I mean it's so the film itself is not just a concert film. It's a concert film, but also the story of Harlem in '69, Black community in '69, and people will be able to see the movie this summer. It'll be released in theaters and outdoor theaters,
amazing,
and Hulu as well.
Perfect.
And it's a very communal viewing experience. Like there is a lot of music in there, and so that was really important for us to be able to provide a way for people to see it together, which I think coming out of coronavirus, hopefully this summer we're in a much better place. I think that's going to be a real tonic.
Yeah.
Been through. But the footage itself, we tell a little bit of the story in the film. It's a local promoter named Tony Lawrence had been doing this Harlem Cultural Festival for a couple years, and the city was really interested in placating unrest in Harlem specifically. They were, hey, we'll do some shows in the summer of '69 because we don't want riots like there were in '68. Whatever their motivations were, there's a mayor of New York City at the time, John Lindsay, and then a TV producer was like, well, if all this talent's going to be assembled, we should shoot it because I can make some TV shows and we can sell the TV shows and make a lot of money and do more of these, because he was like a variety show TV director. And so all these sort of factors came together to put on this festival. Maxwell House came on board as a sponsor because one of the first companies, big General Foods products that recognized that the Black community was a demographic to market to. So all these things came together to throw this festival, and Hal Tulchin, the TV producer, he put his own money up to shoot this. And he did a great job. It's very, he shot it on videotape, which is in '69 an advanced technology. The tape are in these big cases, 2-inch reel cases, Tiffany blue 2-inch reel cases. They weigh about 20 to 25 pounds each.
Wow.
But after the festival, he couldn't sell the TV show. No one wanted to buy a Black show. No one regarded this event. No one publicized it really. Woodstock happens the same summer, and that gets all the publicity. And he tried to sell it for a few years after, and no one was really buying it. So he kept this footage in his basement, always with plans to do something with it, but the opportunities never really materialized. And then about 10 or 12 years ago, this my co-producer Robert Fivolent, this footage has started to gain some like legend status in archival communities, and he had heard about it, and he went to Hal Tulchin and was very persistent and got the rights to it, and then took it to a couple of places to make the film. But music film is really hard to make, the rights and clearances, and
I'm sure
no one really knew what to do with this, and there was a few different people attached to it at different times, and at some point he got it about 3 years ago to Radical Media in New York. The guys at Radical is my old boss at MTV. I was doing some development work with them at the time, and they decided we should get a director like Amir attached. He's never directed before, but he's a storyteller, a musicologist. Once that deal was done, they came to me and they were like, Dave Srolnik, the EP over at Radical, he was like, Amir, right? And I was like, yeah, I've known him for a very long time. He's like, would you be interested in working on this? And that's how it all started. And the biggest challenge was getting this footage transferred off these reels.
I bet.
2-inch videotape machines don't exist anymore. And it took me about a month and a half, almost 2 months, to find the right place to restore this footage. And the thing about the videotape is that some of it is moldy. The other thing is, in the videotape cases, they have like stickers on the inside of the cases, and the over 50 years, the glue from the adhesive of the sticker leaked down into the tapes.
Ooh.
So we had to like bake the tapes and like, but for the most part, they were in good shape because they weren't exposed to air and they weren't moved around a lot. So
nice.
in good shape, and the he had the foresight to shoot 4 cameras. He had the foresight to do 2 decks simultaneously recording, so he could fake a stereo mix sometime in the future.
Wow.
It's tremendous. It's, for me, the opportunity to work on this film, a lot aside from a lot of personal reasons, was also like how many times in your career, in your life as a storyteller, do you have the chance to tell the story of something that will forever put it down on the cultural timeline?
Yeah.
Like we after this movie comes out, people will no longer think of '69 as just the summer of Woodstock.
No.
They'll remember this festival now.
For sure.
And part of the story,
go ahead.
sorry. I said part of the story too that we talk about in the film is examining why people don't remember this festival, why it was laid forgotten for so long, and the chance to correct that is really was very alluring to me.
Yeah, I love how you guys, you coming from as a producer, coming from as a writer, like coming from the culture, Quest being, I have a way better understanding of his musicologist title because I've been listening to all of the Questlove Supremes during the lockdown, and just like him and his whole entire crew are so knowledgeable and everything. But him being a musician, a musician, a DJ, the timing, it's all about timing and rhythm, and I think only you guys are able to do this and do it in a way that's successful, that's illuminating. Like there's parts of this where I'm just thinking how like it's kind of like the Hidden Figures moment, like word, like that's a significant fucking thing that happened, that these ladies contributed to something, and we're just finding out about this shit now. The same thing happened. Like there's points where I got teary-eyed and super emotional, especially like some of these performances, because you're like, if you know anything, especially if you're a person of color, you're just like, yo, this could have gone where no one would ever see this, and only the people that attended, the 300,000 people that attended, took this to the death, and no one would know about this. The Nina Simone fucking, I was like transfixed, and I was telling all my friends, I was like, yo, I can't wait for you to see this shit. Like that was a lot of those performances were like cultural shifts and cultural moments, and how you guys talked about that, even just looking at the fashion within the crowd and stuff like that. But another part of the movie that you guys did such a great job is, you guys are saying that it was before, a couple of days before Woodstock, and then also the landing on the moon, and they're interviewing people and doing that with the music. And I was just like, yo, this is a visual representation of what Jill Scott Heron wrote Whitey on the Moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what was really interesting is, we made a very conscious decision in the film the summer of '69, there's a lot of things happening, right? There's a lot of the man lands on the moon. Woodstock is happening. A year earlier, MLK is assassinated. There's uprisings everywhere across the country. Few years before, 69 was also when 68 is also when Bobby Kennedy dies, and someone who a real heavyweight political ally for a civil rights struggle. A few years before MLK dies, and it's what we made a conscious decision to show those events that people are familiar with, but from a Black perspective. So we used Black archival sources wherever we could. There's a show called Black Journal that starts in '68, and '69 is really this mainstreaming of Black Power consciousness, and not just Black Power consciousness. You see this really the beginning of the formations of the Rainbow Coalition,
Yeah.
right? So you're seeing the Young Lords, and you're seeing, the White Workers' Party, and you're seeing, all these different coalitions starting to come together, and it's really, so part of what we hope the film achieves is to show these events that you think of one way, but show them from a Black perspective to understand that it wasn't regarded the same way by those communities,
You guys were
right?
successful in that shit for sure.
Yeah. So it was, it's yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the movie because people haven't seen it yet. So
Yeah.
we'll do this again when it's out.
Yeah.
But I hope I'm incredibly proud of what we made as
As you
a
should.
team, and I really am over the moon that people loved it. People who saw it loved it. I hope it's the beginning of a very long journey for this film, and more importantly than anything, I hope people love it and learn from it and take the lesson of these stories need to be told. Because can you imagine the impact this would have had on the culture had people understood that it happened and it was celebrated the same way Woodstock was celebrated?
Yeah.
Like the people we talked to people who were at the festival, and we bookend the film with a guy. I'll tell this one story. It's really great. We bookend the film with the guy who was 5 years old when the festival happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when we found him, he was like, he's like, I was 5. And we were like, okay. In my head, I'm like, he's 5. What does he remember? And no one has seen this footage. None of this footage, a little bit of Sly leaked like 10 years ago, and a little bit of Nina was in that Nina Simone doc a few years back, but no one's seen anything else. Like it never leaked out anywhere. This when we did our pre-interview with this guy, Musa Jackson, the performance that moved him was The Fifth Dimension, who in '69 is the biggest artist in the world, right? They're Billie Eilish and Dua Lipa mixed into one in '69, and he remembered. I said, "What do you remember about the festival?" And he told me the story. His mother's boyfriend took him and his brother to the park because it was just down the street, and he remembers they were giving out balloons at the edge of the park, and there were all these like food vendors, and we went digging in the archives and we found all these photos of food vendors around the park during the festival, and kids getting balloons and stuff that hadn't been digitized before. So we were like, okay. I was like, okay. And then he was like, I remember The Fifth Dimension. He remembered what they were wearing. He remembered what they performed. And I was just like, how does he there's no way he could be misremembering.
Yeah.
Because this hadn't been seen by anybody. He knew the color of their outfits and that they had tassels on. And I was just like, wow. And then we interviewed him, and it was a great interview. And then we showed him the footage at the end of the interview, and he starts tearing up. He's crying. He's like, oh my God. And what was profound was that it validated to him these memories he's been carrying for his entire life, that people thought he was crazy, or that he had been carrying these memories with him. So think of that on a sort of cultural scale.
Yeah.
Which is, if this festival had been celebrated the way and remembered by history in the way that Woodstock had been, what could that have done for not only the people who are there, but the artists who performed, and the sort of reverberations ever after. So that's why I think it's important to tell these stories, like this film, like Hidden Figures, a dramatized version, obviously.
Yeah.
There's just so many more important stories to tell, and I'll never get tired of people telling them.
Amazing. So I just want to say thank you again for this film. I want everyone to see it. If you could see it when it comes out and it's safe and you could see it outside, I mean, I'll see it again to see it with other people, because I was by myself and I was like, who's, I was trying to tell everybody, like, who could be down to, let's watch it, and stuff like that. But they couldn't get tickets. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to watch this shit. And I was just, after watching it, I was like texting a bunch of friends because I told them, I was like, this movie, da da da. And I saw it and I was like, dude, I was like, Black people have contributed so much to not just the United States, to the fucking world. You know what I'm saying? And for so many different reasons that we all know, it's like it keeps getting suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. And so shit like this is amazing. So thank you. I can't wait for everyone and their mother to see and to see you on Twitter and just seeing the people that you admire and respect, you know, and that they're not regurgitating, but telling you back what you hope the film to
Yeah.
convey to people. It's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous and beautiful and awesome. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
So proud. It's just like good people doing good shit, contributing to the culture. And also another theme that we have on here is that the people I have on here is that hip hop, we didn't grow out of hip hop like some people did. Hip hop is a huge part of us. It's in my blood. It's in my veins. It's my DNA, right? I was just telling my homeboy Woes, who I have on, I think one or two episodes before you, is like, I don't know if you watch WandaVision, but it's like we've gone through, you know, her dome and we've been changed on a cellular level where it's part of us. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it
Yeah.
kind of dictates everything that we do. And I feel like it's the same for you. It's taken you so many places and I remember you asked me to do something. I don't think it was ever used, but it was awesome that you reached out for My Block. Was that what it was called?
Mhm.
And like, just going and doing stuff for the culture and going to the history and getting that, that nook and cranny type of stuff of being right there so we could see the artists in that area, hip hop, the culture and stuff like that. So you've had access working at MTV, Vice, Fader, a bunch of different places, and you've had access and been able to interview and work with so many different people. But how was the experience interviewing the people for this film for you though?
I love interviews. I love interviewing people. It's why, when I was DJing on the radio in the early 90s, I was also simultaneously writing for regional rap magazines, in college, doing a radio show, was part of this label, SoleSides, was writing for the Bomb Hip Hop magazine and Herb, and then later, The Source and Vibe and Double XL. And for me, it was, interviews have always been amazing just to do. So, I love interviewing people. For this film, it was really working with Amir to prep him for the interviews, but also the footwork of finding people and doing pre-interviews and like seeing who has a real good story to tell, who will be good on camera. We're talking about people who went to this thing 50 years ago. They're in their 70s and 80s now, and memory is tough to access. One person we interviewed, he was conflating years. He was remembering things that didn't happen in '69. And it was tough, and it was, so it was. But yeah, I mean, I love interviews. I love, why I love writing, why I love doing interviews in the '90s with for rap magazines is like I got to talk to like my favorite rappers and producers and to hear I mean, can you imagine like, I got to talk to Nas pre-Illmatic,
Yeah, come on, man.
who had one song out, and it was like, yo, this is incredible. He's in San Francisco for a promo tour, and it's like, you get to spend 45 minutes talking to Nas about, his process. Like
Amazing.
that's a feeling, and that's an act. It taps into something that is just like, I'll never get tired of it. And
Yeah.
what I'm doing now is very similar, it's the same thing. It's just different format.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into the segment I like to call questions from the audience. So I have a couple of questions. So, believe you know these people. First one is ask him to tell you the story of SoleSides' Birth of Fire.
SoleSides' Birth of Fire?
This is from B+, Brian Cross.
What is he talking about?
I don't know. I thought
So,
you would know.
SoleSides Birth of Fire.
Yeah, I copied and pasted. I was like, okay, let me see.
What? I have no idea what he's talking about.
All right, B. I tried.
I I will say this about Brian though. I'll just talk a little bit about SoleSides real quick. I go to UC Davis. My freshman year, I'm a big fan of college radio in high school. Get to UC Davis, I'm listening to college radio. I hear this hip hop show. It's great. I'm like, okay, let me go down to the station and see who this person is. There's two people that had a show. There's a woman named Voodoo Child, who had a show, and there's DJ Zen. And I went down, and it was Voodoo Child was doing her show. She let me sit in the studio, and I was like, "This is cool." And the next week, I went to DJ Zen's show, and DJ Zen is Jeff Chang,
Oh,
and I started just hanging out at his show, and then these other freshmen were also hanging out at his show. They were, Lyrics Born, who at the time was Asia Born, who grew up in Berkeley, and Chief Excel, who was from, I think he was from Southern California. No, he was from Southern California, yeah. And then we were at the radio station and like circling around each other and listening to records in the listening room. KDVS had this incredible music library. Shout out Marta Alveus, the music director at the time, who just built this incredible music library. And that's how SoleSides formed. Is we all gravitated toward DJ Zen's radio show, and Jeff was a mentor to me. He was, I was a knucklehead kid who didn't have a lot of experience in the world, and he taught me a lot. And then he was writing for magazines, and he got me into writing for magazines, and and he taught me about how the music wasn't the biggest lesson he taught me is that the music wasn't independent of the communities that made it.
nice. Yep.
That is the spirit of hip hop.
For sure.
There's the spirit of hip hop is making something out of nothing, but it's also that the music is a reflection of community. Not even as an art form, it's still a reflection of community. It doesn't mean it has to be an honest representation. It's still art, but the hip hop is about communities, and you can't have one without the other. And that's maybe the biggest lesson that I learned from him. The other lesson I learned from him is that everything is political, right? Like nothing,
Yep.
everything is politics. It's about how we organize and activate and fight. So that was a real transformational experience for me. And B plus obviously at the time is when I started writing for magazines, Brian was taking photos to accompany my stories in Herb, and it was like his photographs are incredible.
Yeah.
And he's an incredible photographer. And him and Jeff Chang were really tight, and that's how I met B. And this is just a whole crew of people that I got introduced to from that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, there it is,
If-
B.
But if he's talking about Birth of Fire, now I'm like, am I just too old and I don't remember? But,
I'll get clarification afterwards. Okay, next question. I'm sure you have several, but tell us about one of your favorite interviews, interactions, or projects that you worked on in the past. And this is by our episode 14 guest, Mona Lisa.
I love her. I don't know. I mean, I remember almost every interview I've ever done, and they're all exciting. Interviewing De La Soul for the first time, like interviewing Black Star for the cover of Herb in 98, maybe, or 98, 99. Actually, my interview with Amir, how I met Amir, is memorable because I'm still feeling the effects of it. Like, my first cover story was 1996 for Rap Pages magazine. It was on the Roots. It was also their first cover story. And I was living in the Bay. I was living at my parents' house post college. and I got flown out to Philadelphia to interview the Roots. I loved the Roots. Um, I get to Philly, I interview them. Amir says, "Well, rather than go back to your hotel, like just come hang."
Mm.
And we hung out walking down South Street. And it's late summer, I think, so it's like really hot and sticky outside. And he'd been up since like 5 in the morning doing photo shoots and doing my interview with the band, and then so we're just walking around South Street. We walked down to his house in South Philly, and he's living in a house with like 8 other people, and we it's clear that I mean, Mir's special in that he knew my byline before I even met him.
Oh, really?
Because he just absorbed rap magazines.
Got it.
So he was asking me about reviews I had written that he had read, and we get back to his place, and it's like late, and he puts on some music while he's cleaning up his room, and we're just talking about music, and what he's playing me is he had just met D'Angelo a few months before, and when he and D'Angelo met, they just jammed for like 2 hours. And he's playing me like this jam that they were doing, and it's just Amir on drums and D'Angelo on keyboard and voice, and I'm just like transfixed. And then we sat on his stoop of his building. It was like 4 in the morning, and we ordered cheesesteaks, and we're eating cheesesteaks, and
Amazing.
and it just was like this, and we became friends from that moment forward. And I've known him ever since, and the fact that we're working together 25 years later is crazy.
Amazing.
But there's so many, like I am one of these people that like pack rat. Every interview I've ever done, I have on cassette. I've properly labeled the date where it was. I have transcripts of all those interviews. Like I was
that.
archiving that shit as it was happening, and I need to digitize all of it and like start to do something with it. But
that's amazing. I love hearing that shit.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, let's get into the not so rapid fire questions, aka the slow as hell questions.
Oh, so those are supposed to be rapid fire questions, and I did not make them rapid fire questions.
These are about to be, but they're
Okay.
not. That was questions from the audience. So B plus, I think it was awesome because maybe you don't remember what he was talking about, but you talked lovely about him because he's a fantastic person. Also, D'Angelo, if you're listening to this, it'll probably be post, but D'Angelo at Apollo for Versus. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 words to describe yourself.
Oof. Humbled in my old age. Not 3 words. I'm just going to describe myself in 3 different ways. Humbled in my old age. Constantly learning. If I'm not constantly learning, I'm done. Just pack it in. And really grateful. I'm just grateful. Like I'm grateful that we're all just specks of dust, right? Like I'm just grateful that like I've had incredible experiences in my life and career. I'm grateful that I'm still getting opportunities. I'm grateful to have met so many amazing people, yourself included, Brian Cross, Mona Lisa, like so many people, like just dope people. And I'm just forever grateful for that. Being a child of immigrants, Indian immigrants, my parents had their friends' kids, they wanted me to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, banker. Their friends' kids did all those traditional things. I did not. I caused my parents a lot of agony, I'm sure. But at some point it clicked for my parents that I was living a life that you couldn't buy.
Yeah.
And when they understood that, and they were really, that acknowledgement meant a lot to me. And I'm just continue to be grateful for these experiences.
Awesome, man. That's beautiful. What's the best piece of advice you've received?
Best piece of advice I've received. Let's see. I don't know, actually. I don't really take advice very well. Um, I don't remember who gave it to me, but someone gave me the advice at some point where not everything has to happen all at once right away.
Mm.
Right, like you go into a new job and you think you can make impact and change and affect the place. It doesn't all happen all at once. You've got to almost like sort of scam your way through it. You have to like earn their trust and then flip the script a little bit. But like, when I was young, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna change everything overnight. And it's like someone told me, it's like change doesn't happen all at once, it happens incrementally. And
For
that was a
sure.
really good piece of advice.
Yeah, for sure. Next one. What are you doing to dismantle the patriarchy?
um Probably not enough. Uh but in my very small way, so I after working at MTV, I went on to a series of um sort of high level content jobs at Vice, the relaunched MySpace, Fader, Vevo. And one of the things that I'm really spent a lot of time making an effort doing is dismantling and reinventing ways in which to give people opportunities, non-white people, women, um, you know, being in a position of power where I could actually affect that change, and then having to convince the sort of execs above me that I knew what I was doing, but also that it's valuable, right?
Mm.
You got to play a little dance a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and so, in my very small way, that is something that I consciously make an effort to do. And I'll give you an example. At MTV when I was working there, the interns every summer were all the same variations on the same theme.
Yeah, I bet.
Rich white kids.
Yeah,
And I was like, why are we always getting these rich white kids? And it was like, oh, it's because who else can afford to live in New York and work for free in the summer?
that's real.
And I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, then why don't we go to local colleges in the outer boroughs and recruit them to intern? I tried to get an internship at MTV when I was in college, and you think it's this like fortress that you have to penetrate, but it's not. It's just who you know.
Yeah.
So, we put signs up and recruitment letters at local colleges and started changing the complexion of the people that were interning at MTV News and Docs.
Nice.
Later at the Fader, I was building a video department from scratch for them in 2014, and I was like, the person who was helping me was like, okay, I got all the resumes in, and they're in two stacks. One are the college graduates, which I'll put on your desk, and the non-college graduates I'll throw away. I was like, no, wait. Why do you need a college degree to be a videographer?
Right.
Why do you need a college degree to be an editor? Like, that's not how I want to sift through. That's not the way to sift through these resumes. There is a way to sift through resumes. You have to, or else it's impossible. But that's not the variable that I want to factor in. I want to know who really wants to do this, right? It doesn't matter that they have a college degree or not. It doesn't matter that they, have experience or not. I want to know who when you're trying to make something, and and it's been a long day, who wants to be there?
Yeah.
Because they love it, not because it's a job. So in very small ways, I'm trying to like just because it's hard. If people hiring biases is a real thing. Like
Yeah.
hiring bias is a real thing. People, consciously or not, they hire people who mimic life experiences that are like theirs, and that's why you can throw a rock and hit 50 white hip hop music video director dudes.
Yeah.
And many of them are talented, but like it takes actual work and effort and time and consciousness to create space for Black women to direct hip hop videos,
Mm.
non-white people in general, just to be in that space in these media jobs, and it takes actual work and effort. So that's my small contribution to the fight.
And I don't feel it's a small contribution. I feel it's the huge contribution because, like you said, from your advice, those are the steps needed to make large change, you know? So thanks for that. Next one, song to get you hyped when you need it.
So this is actually real. So during this whole process of making this film, I would, there's been like big interviews that we had to do that I was real nervous before doing them, right? Stevie Wonder or who else did we interview? Like Charlene Hunter Galt, or before the Sundance screening, before the panel, like Mobb Deep, Infamous album. I just put that. That's
Of
it. On the
course.
headphones. I listen to that, and then when I'm trying to feel like uh sort of like getting a better like headspace, a more positive headspace, not so worried. The song "Power Show" by Fela, the long version, which just sounds like summer to me, and it just makes me feel open. So
That's
those are two
wonderful.
very real examples from the last few months.
I love that. I love to hear people's hype songs. And the last of these slow as hell questions, what will be your legacy, Jazzbo?
I don't know if I will have one. I really, like I said, we're all just specks of dust. I think the only thing you can do is help people as much as you can and the people around you, and have that echo out. I tell everybody that I try to give time to people coming up, but I tell them you have to give time to people coming up once you've made it. That's it. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't. Just I want to know that I helped somebody,
Yeah.
and I that person helped somebody too, and that person helped somebody, and that person helped somebody. That's it. That's all we can do.
Yeah. You've done that, and this is just, I feel like it's not even the middle or anything. Like I feel like you're just beginning to do like new chapters of other ways that you're, the reach back, the reach back and pulling up, and then those people keep reaching back and pulling up. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Before we leave, thank you so much for your time. I
Thank
wanted
you.
to talk about Contact High because I was like, let me drive from Palm Springs and I made a whole thing of it. I was like, let me meet my homegirl. Let's go see Contact High, take that in. And then right after that, we went to have dinner, and then we went to go see Princess Maya Rudolph's
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It
Oh,
was
that's
like a
cool.
whole thing. So it was like hip hop, seeing my entire youth, you know what I'm saying? These amazing photos in that exhibit. So tell the people about the exhibit, and which is in Dubai now, right?
No, it's in Abu
Oh,
Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi. And
Yeah.
then
So
and then
contact.
how you're a part of that.
So Contact High is a book started by Vicky Toback, a longtime friend of mine, who, when I was in the Bay, she used to work at Payday Records, and she would
Oh.
come out with like Shone AG or Gangstar or Jeru, and bring them on their West Coast promo run. That's how I met her, and all these years later, again, community, right? This is all community. All these years later, I was reading, she had a column at Mass Appeal called Contact Eye, where she would look at famous photographs and the contact sheets around those photos and use that to tell the story. And it was not just the story of the photograph, ultimately, it became the story of the photographer, the artist, the press people around them that you saw on the contact sheets, and the story of the day or the location. So it's this like rich jumping off point for hip hop storytelling. And I approached her and I was like, I think this is a TV series. And she's like, well, I'm working on a book. And I'm like, I want to work with you on turning this into a TV series. So that was 5 years ago.
Okay.
And we had sushi lunch, and I was telling her I said, and I was at Vevo at the time, and I was like, I don't want to do it for Vevo. I think it could be something that we could pitch to like make real TV. So she put out the book. The book is incredible. Along with the book came Annenberg, Center for Space for Photography. They wanted to do an exhibit. So she did the exhibit. I helped her out a little bit with that. Included a couple of my favorite photographers, personal favorites, Ravy B and Sam Balaban. Ravy has the Jay-Z and Beyonce photo, and Sam has this incredible Mac Miller portrait from a few weeks before he died. And Vicky and I are partners. So it's her book, her exhibit. She's the creative force behind that. I've been helping her out with the subsequent exhibition in New York before the pandemic. We created a new one to be international, which is the one that's in Abu Dhabi right now. And we're not ready to announce it yet, but I'll give you the
exclusive.
But after many years of trying to pitch this around, we're finally going to be making a Contact High feature documentary.
Dope.
Yeah, that she'll be executive producing, I will be directing, and
excuse.
Yeah, we're gonna hopefully get into that real soon. Actually, probably start in a few weeks.
Amazing. That's amazing news. I don't know her. Like, I know of her, but I don't know her. But especially when this came out and I was like seeing who was a part of it and, her and stuff like that. And I was like, yes. You know what I'm saying? Just like having her put this together with her history and everything like that. I mean, the exhibit it was a time machine. It was like, you open the time capsule to so many different, and then also seeing the behind the scenes, because you see some of the, like she said, the contact photos and stuff like that. So that was dope, and I'm so happy. I can't wait to see what you guys do.
Dope. Biggie's dope. She's a child of immigrants. Grew up on food stamps in Detroit and moved to New York as a teenager, and is just like this quintessential story of like New York being a home.
Yeah.
She found her. She was way too hip for my taste. Like if I knew, what I mean by that is that she was very, very down from the minute she stepped foot in New York City. Was a door girl at Nell's back in the day. Wow. She was promoting parties. I think the launch of Supreme was a party she promoted. Like, wow. She's a cool kid, too cool for me sometimes. But what she's done with Contact High, I think, is again another way to tell stories that fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool project. So
awesome, man. Jazzbo, Joseph Patel, Jazz Beezy. Thank you so much.
This was a lot of fun, and it's a wonder why anyone wants to talk to me at all. But you are the homie, and I appreciate you wanting to talk to me.
Thank you for doing it. I know you're busy, so gracias. And everybody see the fucking movie. I'll have links to all the shit we talked about, and I'll let you know. Thank you. Do you want to support original content that supports diverse voices? Why not support Word to Your Mama? You're listening to it right now. Become a patron. Head over to patreon.com/WTYM. There are 4 patron levels to choose from, including Good Looking Out, I'm Down, Hell Yeah, and Please Believe It. Benefits include patron shoutouts, exclusive patron-only content, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/WTYM to take your support to the next level. Gracias. And now, introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner. Supernatural Bear. Yo, what up, everybody? This is just, I'm not doing a song or anything, but there's this new series called City of Ghosts. It is a very cool, very awesome new series, and it's half documentary, half animation. I think it's very cool, and I think you should go watch it because it's all about LA. So especially if you live in LA, or your family lives in LA, or you used to live in LA, as I did, then you'll love this. You will love it. Also, it has some of the cutest animation I've ever seen without being too chibi. I'm talking to you, chibi tails.
Where can people find it?
You can find it, and you can only find it exclusive style.
Yes, keep going.
Okay. As on Netflix. You can only find it on Netflix because it's a Netflix original, and you can't see Netflix originals with other apps. But yeah. Hope you guys have an awesome time watching it, and this has been the SMB 16. Peace.
Shooby-doo. Yeah. So yeah, episode 23, Jazzbo. Good times. And like I was saying, it really is good for the soul. It was great reconnecting. I look forward to building even more. But just, I'm talking about like on a human level, just the good energy, good folks. He's done so much, and he's always giving back, and he's always sharing the knowledge, and just good peeps, man. It was a good one. And I concur with the Supernatural Bear, City of Ghosts. I heard that coming up in the next couple episodes, tearjerkers, but it is super cute, super well done. You learn a lot about the different neighborhoods in LA, and I really love the Ghost Crew, and you'll understand when you watch it. So definitely recommend that. But yeah, if you checked out the episode before, episode 22, we had Emmy award-winning Linda Morel, and she's a producer. She won Emmy for Key and Peele, and then boom, today we got Jazzbo over here. So producer, the doobla-doob over here. Yeah, so it's we're on episode 23. We're chugging along. I really love doing this. So support any way you can. Leave those reviews. Spread the word. Tell your folks. Tell your friends. And as always, we reap. Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Theme music produced by the great Nico Beats. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by RitzyP.com and Panoply BPO